studio, we have the wonderful Valerie Davis, and we're going to be talking about mental health today. And so this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So hang in there with us. But how's everybody doing on this wonderful Saturday? So the weather's changing. The time is what? It's sprung forward already. So, hopefully we're getting into the spring soon, which is going to bring about the summer. So, hopefully you guys, as we're going to talk about mental health a little bit later in the program, hopefully you guys are making sure that you are going to be spending time with your family this summer and you're going to be navigating that as well. So thank you again so much for joining us. So as usual, every Saturday morning we get into hot topics and entertainment. And what is the hot topic that's going on every day of our lives? Of course, it's the Trump administration and what he might be doing, Trump administration might be doing, or what does Elon Musk destroy, burn down, that is going to have to be changed around a little bit later. So we're just going to talk about a couple of things that are going on before we get ready to go into our next segment. And then, as always, my guests are more than welcome to jump in and share the conversation with us. So for those of you, probably every week we've hit on the concept of DEI, what it is, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we actually just had an event with the Solano County Black Chamber this past Thursday, and we did a little conversation about DEI, what it is, because everybody, let me not say everyone, that's too general. People are having the misconception that DEI is and was created for Black people. And so for everyone out there in YouTube land and radio land that don't know, nothing in America has ever been created for Black people. Let's be really, really clear. So they did not create DEI because Black people were the chosen people and let's correct and right our wrongs. That has not happened. This is a country that still has not come to terms with slavery and what has been done to the indigenous people. So we know that we don't have a bowed conscience. Now, what we do know is that DEI came out of the crux of the George Floyd murder. And because of that, it helped people to really come to grips with how they've contributed to opportunity for a variety of people. But much like affirmative action, DEI benefited more white women than it benefited anyone because they are also considered a minority group amongst men. So there we are. There we have it. You heard it here first. Don't send me any emails if you don't agree with me. I don't care. Let's talk about DOGE, right? So DOGE is the department that was created by the president, our current President Trump, to go through and slash waste within the government. And we know that there's a lot of governmental waste, excuse me, that's floating around. We know there's a lot of excess grants, and sometimes we look at these different organizations and we wonder, well, why are they and how did they and why is that? Okay, there we have it. But what they're doing is they're shutting down organizations, they're shutting down governmental departments that might definitely need some waste navigated and streamed through. And then they're having to rehire them because, and I think it was, I was watching MSNBC and one of the commentators said, it would be different if they go through these departments and these government organizations and see what the waste is and do an examination and get the data, because right, data is the truth, everything else is a lie and an opinion, but get the data on where we could save money, where the American people could put more money in their pockets. That's not something at all that has been happening. They've just like been shutting it down. And I think they said that Elon Musk is navigating or living with autism. It might not be best to have someone who lacks really good social skills and lacks the ability to connect with people to have so much control, because what it tells you is he's not looking at the human aspect of this. He's just looking at the business aspect. As we know, yes, he is a successful businessman. But anytime you're going through organizations, departments, companies, you have to look at how this is going to affect the people, especially if you are a part of the highest level of administration. And being a part of that is you have to look out for the best interests of people. Because if the platform that the president ran on is that I'm going to make sure you have more money in your pocket, that you're going to be able to, in essence, this isn't what he said, but in essence, you're going to be able to live out your version of the American dream. Well, that's not going to happen if you're cutting federal jobs, you're cutting veteran jobs, and then your answer for it is, well, they probably can't do the jobs anyway. Well, okay. So, just something to think about. But I say that to say that Doge just slashed $1.7 billion worth of contracts into LGBTQ plus community, as well into trans farmers, not transformers, I promise, trans farmers, okay? And so this brings us to the question of why are we spending time and energy on things that is not of effect of all of us? We have an LGBTQ plus community, whether you agree with it or not. People have a right to live out their truth, whatever that is for them. And why are we focusing on that? Why are we focusing on DEI? I think the interest was because the president thinks that's going to affect black people. You ain't hurting us. We wouldn't get nothing on DEI anyway. So, knock yourself out, knock all of it out. You're hurting white women. But the reality of it is that why are we spending time on things that are not going to make a better tomorrow for us and really do something effective? I don't want to spend $34 for a carton of eggs. I don't think I bought eggs in like 6 months. I can't afford it. I got to pay a mortgage. So if I got to decide between mortgage and eggs lose. So let's, spend some time and some focus on that. Jumping back over to California. Can we get a recall going for this California insurance commissioner, Laura, who is an absolute failure as a commissioner? He just came into term, and every insurance rate known to man has skyrocketed and hiked up, and this man is saying he can't do anything about it. He doesn't know, couldn't know, doesn't, I can't. And now he's just had the audacity to give State Farm, allow them and approve for them to have a 22% increase in charging their customers. So let me get this straight. California has the highest percentage of homeless, which means we don't have enough jobs, resources, or infrastructure to help those that are sleeping on the streets. Okay, that's all no. We have, because Governor Newsom just put into effect in 2023, a bill, and I think it was AB 133, I don't have that exactly, where businesses now went from $16 for minimum wage up to $20 an hour. That caused for 16,000 more people to be unemployed, because when you don't meet with the businesses, you don't talk to the owners, and you just pull some numbers out of your hip pocket, and you don't realize that if I'm a small business or a mid-level business owner and you just gone and given everybody a $4 raise, well, now you just upped unemployment because I can't afford them. I can't afford for the $4. I can't afford for the insurance, the medical insurance, the workers' compensation insurance that you have to have in California for every employee at all. Where is consumers and insurance policy holders with State Farm going to get this additional 22% increase, whatever that turns out to be? How are they going to be able to afford that and pay for that? That is ridiculous. And to come in and be the insurance commissioner, and this is what you are okay with? And I stated this before on another one of our programs, on one of our shows, that Congressman John Garamendi had asked for him to step down. That has to be because citizens, residents, are calling their congressman saying, I can't afford my insurance. Or in California, insurance is just being shut down and stopped, and that's it. So we have to do something. This guy is clearly not competent, and this is my opinion only, that he's not competent enough to be an insurance commissioner if he doesn't understand that his job is to be able to support the American people and to make sure that the American people have resources to be able to get what they need to have. We need homeowners insurance. Mine went from $1,500 to over $3,000. But yet I'm having to fight to get claims approved. And it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm not going to belabor it with that because that couldn't be more boring. But, you guys pay attention to this stuff. Like, don't just sit there and complain and go on social media being an internet warrior. This stuff is important to our everyday living. If you are a homeowner, then your insurance is important. Your auto insurance, Geico is not even taking phone calls anymore. I'm like, how are you an auto insurance company? You're covering homeowners and all this other stuff, and we can't even talk to a person. There's no guidelines, and the commissioner in California clearly doesn't have the ability to be able to do it because he says he can't do anything. So maybe we need to find somebody who can. And you know my word, I believe in a recall. A recall is your best friend. I don't believe we're going to wait for you to do bad business for the rest of your 4-year term and then put us in a worse situation than we're in. They're always trying to recall Governor Newsom, which is never going to happen. Let's start recalling some of these incompetent elected officials that ran on a platform and they get in here and think that they're stuck for 4 years and aren't doing anything. So that's my word on the bird. Next topic of conversation is our governor has a podcast. Yay! We still have homeless. We can't afford the grocery shopping. Yay! He's got a podcast. So I talked to several people about this, and I don't know, Valerie, if you've seen this or know that our governor in one of the most powerful, one of the most important, one of the most financial based states, has a podcast.
Interesting.
All right, yeah. So I'd love for us to figure out where that $24 billion went for the homeless. I'd love to figure out how we can help small business. I'd love to figure out how we can really make some impact here. But he had the recent guest on there, Charlie Kirk. And if you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, he's a self-imposed white man that knows and has all the information on everybody in every culture. Now, he did say something when I was on YouTube watching him. He said one of the reasons why the black community is not thriving, and I'm going to agree with you, Charlie Kirk, even though you don't know me, you'll probably never see this. He said it's because there are no fathers in the home. Very few fathers in the home. 185% correct. So I almost agree with nothing he said. He said college isn't important. Well, it's not important if you're a white woman or white man in white America. It's not important. But if you're black and you have to have a college degree to bring in the carts from Walmart, and even still then, you don't know if you're qualified to do it, that's a different story. But I do agree with him. I do agree with his assessment of the black community really has enabled themselves to not have leverage of growth by not empowering the structure of the family and by not making sure that the family is important. But I was looking also on YouTube. I love some YouTube, let me just tell you.
Yes.
I was looking also on YouTube, and there was a young African American, black American woman on there, and she says, but we have to hold the women responsible because the women are having babies with men who are not toilet water capable. So if you're having kids with a man who's not capable of being a father, what do you get from that? You're not going to get a father. You're not going to get that. So it's a great conversation. Let me just say that. But so I agree with Charlie Kirk. I don't know if I agree with my governor having a podcast. I don't know. That's a thing for me. Yeah, that is. I think time should be best suited and fit in other arenas. So that's just my assessment of it. But moving along and moving ahead, again, getting into the Trump administration and all the different changes that they're making. You know, if you don't agree with it, you know, we know that the Republicans have the state and they have the Senate. But still, it's necessary to have conversations about what we agree with and what we don't agree with. We're shifting here a little bit over in our little podcast. There we go. I got you. Okay, perfect. There you go, Deshaun. That's perfect. Awesome. Thank you. So it's just important to have conversations and have really organic conversations about what we want and what we don't want. And if we have a congressman or assembly person or whatever the case might be who's supposed to be advocating for us and we've voted for them, this is the time and opportunity to say, listen, excellent. You are here for the people. Your job is to advocate for the people. This doesn't work for me. When you go to Congress, even if you don't have the votes, I want to see and I want to hear that you are making sure that progress is being made, and I want to hear you advocating for us. Even it doesn't matter if it get passed or not. You want people that are going to have a voice. So I think that's the most important out of everything and anything. So get involved, people. Go to your city council meetings. I say this all the time. I just went to our city council meeting here in Vacaville a couple of weeks ago. No, it wasn't a couple of weeks ago. It was this week. Jeez, time is flying. And it was a great meeting, but I'm telling you, Mayor Carley is, he's a beast. He runs, Vacaville City Council is very professional. And that I will say, I could look at some other city councils and say they're not as aware, astute, but Vacaville City Council is pretty professional. They handle themselves like adults, and he absolutely leads without delineage. So that was excellent to see. So people, go to your city council meetings, find out who your city council people are, hold them accountable, find out who your mayor is, and all those different things is necessary. I don't know, Valerie, if you've heard that Sassoon City is looking to annex.
I have not.
Okay. So they're looking to, if you don't know, Sassoon City has had, it's had financial issues. And its need for annexing is because it needs to grow.
Right.
It's been very small for a very long time.
That's actually where I'm from.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. And even though sometimes it's great to be from these really small cities and you know everybody and it's cute and it's awesome, you also need to have the ability to grow and
Right.
expand. You need new corporation coming in,
Right.
or you put in businesses that nobody's going to. And so,
Right.
what's the point of that? And if you're in a city too small, then guess what? Every Saturday, people are leaving the city. They're not
Right,
staying
exactly.
around because there's nothing to stay around for. So, I went to a meeting probably, the Solano County Black Chamber was getting a proclamation. And I went to a meeting, well, I didn't go, but my board went probably about a couple of months ago. And they were talking about the annexing. And everybody was in an uproar if it's California forever or not because there's such an hard opposition
Right.
against California forever. They have probably one of the best city managers. And I'm saying that, and I don't care who hears it and mark it on your gravestone. But Brett Prebula is excellent because he's a visionary. And I think if you're going to be a city manager, you have to have vision for what it can be. Any city that has a city manager and that city isn't growing, your city manager should be fired.
Right.
Where there's not growth and there's not a plan of growth and expectation, the city can't thrive. That means you don't bring in new opportunity.
Exactly.
So we had him, the Solano County Black Chamber of Commerce. Sorry, I have something in my eye that doesn't want to leave. Probably one of my last eyelashes. You put on the eyelashes and you're just losing eyelashes.
Yes,
So probably got
yeah.
3 left. But anyway, so he came and had a conversation, and it was a great conversation, and just really enjoyed him telling what the plans are. But again, everyone, this is Tamuri Richardson. This is TeeTalk. This is a global vibe. This is Power88.fm. We're going to be taking a quick ad break on Power88.fm. And listeners, we will be right back with you. YouTube, we will continue. And so one of the benefits was really that he was talking about what his vision was and what he wanted to have come to the city.
Right.
And I thought it was spot on. And he discussed retail, he discussed entertainment. He didn't discuss any organizations that they would or would not be working with.
Right.
I just thought it was absolutely brilliant of him to really be able to understand what the city needs. Because we have
Right.
cities that need help. Rio Vista, if people have never been, we
They're
used to go to,
extremely small.
yeah, it's really, really small. And they have Sandy Beach. We used to go to Sandy Beach all the time and go camping. But there's no tourism
There's
coming
nothing
through there.
else. No.
Yeah, there's nothing else. The little market, which is cute, but they probably need a chain market there. They definitely need some small business, some development, some e-commerce.
We drive through there to go to LA.
That's right. You drive through there to go straight to Highway 5 to
Right.
take the way there.
Exactly.
And then absolutely. So there's a necessity for everything, and there's a reason for it. So, hopefully Sassoon will be able to do exactly what it needs to. Welcome back, Power88.fm. If you are listening, this is TeeTalk, a global vibe. I am your host, Tamuri Richardson. I am here with a wonderful guest today. Her name is Valerie Davis.
Yes.
And I met Valerie because we share the same passion. We absolutely have a love for mental health. We've both been affected by it and understand how very important mental health is. Having good mental health, but being able to navigate when you need to navigate the mental health aspect. So I want to make sure I give her a bio and give her a correct introduction. Valerie Davis is a passionate mental health advocate, podcast host, and entrepreneur based in San Mateo. Her journey has been shaped by personal struggles with depression and anxiety, as well as the heartbreaking loss of her brother to suicide. Through her experiences, she's made it her mission to break the stigma surrounding mental health and creating a space for honest, healing conversation. She hosts her own podcast, which is Finding My True You, where she shares her story, explores the challenges of living with mental illness, and she offers encouragement to those on their own path to self discovery. Her goal is to remind people that they are not alone and that healing is possible even in the darkest of moments. And in addition to her advocacy work, she owns her own company, True You Company. It's a boutique specializing in custom printed affirmations. She believes in the power of words to uplift and inspire, and she loves helping people and finding reminders of strength and resilience. She is a mother, a grandmother, and a mental health coach, and she's committed to supporting others as they navigate through their struggles. Whether it's through her podcast, her business, or her advocacy, her goal is to help people find hope, healing, and their true selves. Welcome, Valerie. Welcome.
Thank you.
You are so
Thank
welcome.
you.
Put your mic up to you a little bit more.
Okay.
Excellent. So thank you for being here with us today.
Of course.
Mental health is so important. It is something that is either shaping lives, is contributing to destroying lives,
Right.
families when it's untreated and people are not aware. Please tell us how you got into your journey of wanting to be an advocate for mental health.
Well, I've suffered for many years with depression and anxiety. And 4 years ago, I lost my brother to suicide. When people say when you hit rock bottom, you'll know you're at rock bottom.
Hmm.
That was my rock bottom. It totally changed my thoughts, my mind, my physical, being able to do the things that I used to do. And so I had to go through the grieving process of that in order to figure out that my purpose is to help others and, help them, break that stigma.
Excellent.
We all know that there's a huge stigma around mental health and mental illness, and we need to let people know that it's okay to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think also too, culturally, there
Yes.
is different cultures have different stigmas. First
Right.
off, let me say, really sorry to hear about your brother.
Thank you.
And I think the biggest and best thing that you can do in his memory and legacy
Yes.
is seek to help people. So that's so selfless. And thank you so much for doing that.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course.
So in your journey for mental health advocacy and experiencing that, and listen, we have people that say, listen, I want to get in there and I want to be an advocate. But what I've seen from you, I've seen you doing it, talking the talk, and really walking the walk. And so it's not just enough that people say I want to do it, but really getting in there doing it.
Right.
How have you seen your mental health recovery? Because there is a mental health recovery that you have to go through.
Oh yes.
How have you seen that change or morph as you've been out here on your own advocacy journey? How's it helped you?
It's helped me tremendously. That's been part of my healing process, is being able to talk about my story. For many years, I couldn't speak about me having mental health issues, or when I lost my brother, I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't say his name. And so that has been a healing journey that I've been on, being able to speak about it and help others in the process.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it's about. And I don't think a lot of people understand. And then people need time to heal as well. That your story can give life to somebody like at this very moment.
Right. I've spoken at a few events where people after have come up to me and said they lost their mom to suicide, or they lost their sibling to suicide, and thank me for sharing the story that I did. Sometimes it just takes one person to share a story that's familiar to you, and you feel okay inside.
Yeah.
You feel whole inside.
Now, we don't talk about suicide enough, so I want to just touch on that a little bit. And I just want to let everyone who's listening and who will be listening that we have a suicide prevention number, specifically 988.
Yes.
If you have anyone in your family that might be in fear of committing suicide or hurting or harming themselves. It could be anything. 988 was put in for suicide awareness that specifically has the connection and outlet to reach out to those individuals. So 988 is the number that you want to jot down. But just kind of staying there for a quick moment, I remember watching Regina King, she's the actress,
Yes.
and her son had committed suicide.
Yes.
And that was her only child, and it was obvious they had a very close relationship.
Right.
And I watched her have an interview with Gayle King, and she said it took her a while, but her therapist, I don't know if I agree with this or not, but I want to know your perspective on it,
Okay.
told her that his suicide wasn't a personal condemnation, or it wasn't a choice for her to navigate, that his suicide was, he decided that he had had enough of this life.
Right.
And that he felt this was where the road ended,
Right.
and she didn't have a right to try to keep him on a journey he no longer wanted to be on anymore. That would be selfish of her.
Right.
And I don't know if you heard her say that or not, but give me some perspective to that, because it's different when you're digesting it and living in it as opposed to hearing it. And I said, I don't know if I agree with that completely. What do you think?
Right. Well, I think it's selfish of us to think that, family members should not be affected by it.
Mhm.
It's a very devastating thing. It's something that everybody's going to be affected by. And I don't think I believe that either.
Yeah.
I think anytime somebody commits suicide, it's going to affect their family members, their loved ones, regardless. Yes, they were having their tribulation on earth,
Mhm.
and yes, they felt like they needed to end it, but at the same time, we have our right to grieve for those individuals and want them here with us.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's how I felt with my brother. I was sad that I couldn't help him, but then I had to learn that I have to let him go. I have to lie him to rest and just enjoy the good times that we had when he was here on this earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you, if I'm not getting too personal, notice the struggles? How did that work with your family, seeing him struggling or him voicing his struggle and you guys trying to navigate him out of that?
He didn't really voice it too much. He was diagnosed with PTSD, and so he suffered with delusions. And a lot of things happened prior to him committing suicide that I was not aware about. Like he thought people were after him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that he was constantly trying to run from the people that were after him, but nobody was after him.
Right.
It was just all in his head. And had I known that stuff before he committed suicide, I would have stepped in and I would have tried to assist. But they say when people are ready to commit suicide, they're ready.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop them.
No.
So that just makes me feel bad that he was having to go through that suffering within his head.
Yeah.
It's tragic.
It is, and so many people live with that. And the sad part about it is that there might have been another diagnosis going on. A lot of times when I hear that, I think of different diagnoses.
Right. I think that he had a lot of things going on, and I think he was going to the doctor, he was on medication, but I just don't think they correctly diagnosed him with what he had, and perhaps his medication wasn't working and they needed to try something else. I don't think they took the avenues to try anything. I think they just kept medicating him.
Yeah. And the reality is that most people that are living with a mental illness do not know, don't have the education and the knowledge to know how to communicate, because you don't sometimes, from what I've seen from caregiving for someone who has mental illness, you don't oftentimes know what's the word normal and what's not. You don't know what other people are dealing with and what they're not.
Right. And when you're already hallucinating in your mind, of crazy thoughts, you're never going to think correctly and say, I need to take this avenue, or I need to. That's when the family members need to step in, and we can see from the outside that something's not right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And keep in mind, everyone, that suicide is no one's fault.
No.
People take it personal. They feel bad, and we should take it personal. It's personal. But there is nothing, you're absolutely right, when the person is fixed on, you try to do the most and the best that you can.
Right.
It is not the fault of anyone. So if anyone is navigating or living with it, please make sure you get someone to talk to and you get someone that can help you through the grief. That is so important because we take on so much already, right?
Right.
And then to take on another person's life that you don't have control over
Right.
is adding to the decline of your mental health. So, very sad story, but I know sometimes I know we think, but I'm glad that that person is no longer in that pain anymore when you're not
Right.
able to help support them out of it.
Right, right. Because I know what it's like to be in that dark place. I've been in that dark place many times, and it's not a fun place to be in.
Yeah.
And so I know that he's not suffering mentally anymore. So that helps me heal as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you are truly an advocate, and I say that because I said, a lot of people say, oh, I'm an advocate, whatever. When you are truly an advocate, you understand that your voice brings life into people.
Exactly.
And so your story will be beneficial to someone who's navigating it.
Right.
Might even be beneficial to someone who's contemplating it
Right.
to realize the effects that it can have on the family. And it really, untreated mental illness destroys families.
Oh, it does.
It destroys families. We were talking about this before the radio show started, and we talked about how destructive it can be for people to not get the resources that they need. I am a firm believer in a conservatorship.
Right.
Because a conservatorship, and I know it's an ugly word for some, but a conservatorship allows there to be an intervention from a trusted adult when that person may be manic and can't make that decision, and you get to will them in.
Right.
And I want people to think about that who are living and dealing with and caregiving to mental health adults.
Right.
Because once they're 18, you can't
Do nothing.
you can't listen, can't talk, you can't do anything. And that doctor, therapist, psychologist is not always going to be looking out for the best interest.
Right.
That's why that conservator is there to advocate.
Right, exactly. And you need to make sure that it's somebody that's going to be strong and stand they'll fight you tooth and nail on it. And you need to just be sure that it's somebody that's strong enough to be able to tell them, no, I'm doing this, and be okay with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I want to talk a little bit about how this encouraged you to create your own podcast. So let's talk about your podcast, and then I want to talk about your clothing line, which I've seen, and the very powerful art that you've had on your hoodies and so forth. But let's talk about your podcast. Where did that conception come from?
Just talking.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking, letting people know that it's okay to talk. You don't have to be afraid to say that you're not feeling good or you're depressed. You don't have to be afraid.
Yeah.
If I can talk about it, you can talk about it, and I wanted to create a safe environment for people to be able to, if they want to come in and talk on the podcast about their trials and tribulations, then it's a welcoming environment, and we're all okay with what the conversation is.
Absolutely. And that's really what it's about, giving people a safe space. We've talked a lot about NAMI. For those of you who do not know, NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's one of the largest grassroots organization in the United States of America. There's pretty much a NAMI anywhere. That's NAMI. If you are navigating through anxiety, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, any of these different things, they have individuals there that can support. And if you don't find what you need in one NAMI, don't stop. Go to another NAMI. They have peer-to-peer counseling.
Yes.
And they have a lot of different in your own voices. And that's where those of us who I live with anxiety, PTSD as well. But I've controlled my anxiety. I tell people my anxiety is my superpower.
Right.
And I got that little gift from my second ex-husband, who was navigating a serious mental illness and a hidden drug addiction. And with that came a bury of hell, dealing with him and trying to care and support someone who didn't know that up was up and down was down.
Right.
And it took me a little bit to get the anxiety under control. But once I was able to get the anxiety under control, I had a whole sit down conversation with my anxiety because I'm like, look at here, you can't be sweating.
If you're gonna live in
If
here,
you're gonna be up in here,
Yeah.
you can't be sweating and stuff and making me
Exactly.
look crazy, and all of that. But Power 88.fm, we're gonna take a break from the live radio station. We'll be back in a few moments. This is TeeTalk. It's a global vibe. YouTube, we will continue. But it's important. It's necessary, and I have always been a very confident person, and I started second guessing myself on everything up, sideways, and down.
Right.
That was not okay. That was no longer okay for me to not be able to know and navigate.
Right.
And so I sought out a therapist. I still see a therapist to this
Oh, I
day,
do too. Yeah.
and letting people know that part of being an adult is doing what you have to do when you have to do
Exactly.
for the sake of everybody,
Exactly.
and breaking these stigmas. So I love the fact that you have the podcast, and love that you have like gone full throttle into this.
Right. Well, I know how it feels to be, to feel like you don't have anyone, and I never want anybody to feel that way.
Right.
It's a horrible place to be. It's very lonely,
Hmm.
and I just don't. I mean, if they feel like they don't have anybody, they have me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my idea about it. The diagnosis, and that's why I kind of named it True You, because the diagnosis and the disease is not the true you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are in there.
I love that.
Yeah. So that I want to bring that out in people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true, because you know what, you hear people say, you know, when they get themselves on a maybe medicine regimen or something of that nature. Well, I feel like I'm myself again.
Right.
You hear that a lot.
Exactly.
So that's absolutely brilliant. Now tell us about your clothing line as well, because I thought it was so cute and the pictures were just so
Thank you.
very powerful.
So I just I am big on positive affirmation, and I really think that words are very strong. And so I've been out in places before where it's been, people have said that they've seen a word on my.
Hold on one second, Valerie. And we are welcoming back Power 88.fm, our listeners. We are on TeeTalk, a global vibe. Valerie is telling us about her clothing line. So let me get you back where you were.
Yeah, well, I've been out places before with that positive affirmation on my shirt or on my tote bag or something, and somebody said, I really needed that.
Mhm.
I really needed to see that today.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my whole inspiration behind that. I also have a whole other clothing line, which my brother was an artist, and I've put some of his art on some t-shirts. And with those t-shirts, a portion of that goes to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure to give back to those foundations that helped me through my struggles and through my time. I go to group sessions with NAMI and the American Suicide Prevention, and so I want to give back to them.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. And again, that's what it's about. I think that's wonderful, and people need those positive affirmations. I didn't know how many people have such negative thinking about themselves and don't know how to pull that back around.
Right.
Wow.
Because with people that have depression, their first thought is a negative thought.
Yeah, they feel worthless.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can change that by putting something on a shirt or a tote bag or something that's positive, then that will interact with that negative, and it usually beats it out.
Yeah.
There's been times where I've been so down on myself, and seeing something positive, seeing a Bible verse, seeing an affirmation, that's changed my whole mood.
Correct.
So I think it's
Wonderful.
very powerful.
Well, that is very much so. And I think definitely being in a society where all we see is negative, if you are navigating and living with mental illness, I don't watch the news like
I
that.
don't either.
Like, I can tell you, I do little skibbits of what's going on in the world.
Right.
What I give you on Saturday mornings is about what I care. That's
Right.
it. Because it's negative. It's not
Right.
intended to lift you up.
Right.
And if you are feeling in despair now, turn on the news. You are going to be
Oh, yeah.
damnation by the end of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whatever you take in yourself is what you're going to spew out. And
Oh, yeah.
you want to stay. I have to stay away from the negative activities because um, I'm by nature a negative person, anyways. Because
Mhm.
my mother suffered from uh, depression,
Right.
and so she was negative all my life.
Mhm.
And so now I'm trying to counteract that, and so I make sure I'm very, very specific on what I see, what I look at, what I hear. I'm very conscious.
It's interesting because I tell people the same thing. I'm a glass half empty kind of girl.
Yeah.
That's how I've always been.
Right.
It's a process for me to. I mean, and I think I've made a lot of leaps and bounds, but it's a process to see the glass half full.
Yes.
And to wake up sunny and shiny. That's just not me. Like
Right.
I'm ready to burn it down and tear it down first.
Right.
And I have to see the benefit to not doing that.
Right.
And people's human inclination doesn't help you because people are so nasty and negative on the net.
No, because I did have a close personal friend to me one time tell me, I hate talking to you because you're so negative.
Mm.
And you know, I was upset at the time that she said it. I was
Mhm.
upset, but then later on I thought about it as she doesn't understand the disease of depression. That's what depression is.
That's where you go
It's
first.
negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not intended to make you feel good about
Right.
yourself.
So she didn't understand that disease, and I'm okay with it
Yeah.
because she didn't understand. Now that we talk, I think she kind of understands. Okay, this is what she does, and she's fighting a demon inside of her, kind of thing. And
But you
so-
self-correct now also.
Exactly,
You know.
exactly. So I'm more. I'll think about what I say first, or I have my daughter chirping in my ear about saying something negative, and then I try to turn it into a positive.
And I think that's excellent. Self-awareness. I always tell people you have to be self-aware. Like you have
You
to
do.
know what works for you and what's not.
Right.
I tell people that anxiety is my superpower because what I've done is it's like my spidey sense. So I no longer, when I start to feel the little tingle of it or I feel like it's coming on, it's a warning sign for me. It's not
Right.
something I'm going to lose control over
Exactly.
because I decide if I'm going to give into it or if I'm going to control it.
Right.
And so that's the controlling aspect. But it has kept me from cursing a many of people out on a many of days.
Yes.
But it just keeps me in check and lets me know that you have to be careful who you're associating with, who you're doing business with, who you're dealing with, and
Very
that's what it does. People need to really pay closer attention to themselves, closer
Right.
attention to their body,
Exactly.
getting to know. And when you are navigating and living with mental illness, who you have in your circle. I don't talk to one of my brothers. He is absolutely the quintessential picture of toxic.
Yeah.
And we had always been very close, but he's it's not good for me.
Right.
And we end up
Right.
fighting and arguing, and so what is the point of that?
Right.
And so you have to be very careful to take pride in your mental health, your wellness, and making sure that you're good.
Right.
Because what is it to keep friends around you if you leave feeling bad or you're stressed out or
Right.
family members? Be prepared to cut people off. There's nothing more important than your mental health.
Exactly, and I've had to do that too myself. I have family members that are narcissistic, and it triggers me.
Yeah.
Every time I'm around, doesn't mean I don't love them. I
Yeah.
love them dearly, but I know for my health, I cannot put myself around that situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And be okay with leaving or shutting. Like, I will leave a conversation with you fully talking if I feel like you can still there be
It's
talking and
triggering.
I've left.
Yes.
Because you have to put your mental health first.
Right.
And kids. I mean, let's just talk about briefly when you have children
Right.
and your children need you to advocate for them.
Right.
You have to be informed to be able to hear what's going on with them
Right.
and to receive it, because as parents we are sometimes prone, oh, nothing's wrong with you, go and sit on over there, go watch your TV or
Right.
do this, and not knowing that that's a sign that they're telling you something's
Wrong.
off. Right. So as parents, be aware of that also.
Right. And that's the way I grew up. You don't talk about your feelings. You don't talk about stuff that's bothering you. You just get over it.
Right.
And I suffered with depression throughout my children's. I've got 3 children, and I've suffered through depression throughout their lifetime.
Yeah.
And I've seen the devastation it was on them when I was laying in bed for 2-3 days. because I couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Now they fully understand because I'm very open about it with them.
Yeah.
So now they fully understand, and so they're more prone to being understanding if I'm having one of those days.
Right.
But yeah, you didn't talk about it back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a different world because I know with my kids, we sat down and had whole conversations. Like we had to navigate out of that past situation with my ex-spouse because my kids didn't come from that. My first husband, we didn't argue and fight. We didn't
Right.
do any of that in front of the kids. So the kids had never seen me and their dad fighting and arguing. This was very new to them. And I married somebody that was breakfast for them. Like that's what they did.
Right.
And when you're with someone who needs that drama
Yeah.
to thrive, that's problematic.
Right.
And he needed that. So it wasn't a problem for him to do it in front of my kids. He did it in front of his kids.
Right.
So we had
It's
to navigate. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very normal. The whole family was child, please.
Yeah.
But we ain't got that kind of time. That's another show. Oh, Lord.
Part 2.
Ooh, Jesus, take the wheel on them. But it's just important to have that conversation. I had to apologize to them for bringing that into their world.
Right.
But for them to know. And so they became very comfortable with knowing what mental illness was and seeing therapists and navigating their teenage years with a therapist because that was it was normalized.
Right.
Now I grew up in Richmond, California. I remember us, just in gist, we call people crazy. I remember hearing the word bipolar, not even knowing what it was, but you
Right.
call somebody bipolar because they're
Right.
acting crazy or acting off.
Right.
Now it's offensive because
is.
that is a life-altering thing.
Right.
You know,
understand it more now.
absolutely.
Right.
And it's impacting families.
It
So,
is.
and especially in the Black community, and I speak, present, and train for NAMI San Francisco.
Mhm.
And we just did a mental health for Black and African Americans, mental health 101. And it was a great conversation because it's really diving into all the different mechanisms. And a lot of people don't know mental health can be genetics. You could have it down a long list
Oh,
of
yeah.
your family.
Oh yeah.
It can be situational.
Mhm.
A lot of women don't understand. If you have kids and you're in a domestic violence situation, you are damning your kids to a life of it as well.
Exactly.
Because what
It's
do you...
that cycle.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And imagine living in a house where screaming and yelling and watching the abuse, whether you're the woman giving it or the man giving it.
Right.
This kid is now navigating, is this what a normal relationship looks like?
Exactly.
And the imbalance that it causes.
Right.
So everything that we do in our life can have a positive or negative effect.
Right.
Sometimes we just don't understand.
Right.
So we have to really look into these unhealthy relationships. I even think I was watching something, I'm not going to say YouTube, but I think it was on YouTube, about fathers coming in and out of the parents' lives.
Right.
How healthy is that? How not healthy is it? Is it healthy because at least the kid sees the presence of it?
Right.
Or does the them leaving them with abandonment?
Right.
Right. So we have to navigate so much in life and have to preserve so much
Yeah.
of ourselves and then
Yeah.
have to navigate our kids. So let me ask you this. Where do you see yourself going advocacy? What's your ultimate goal for being a mental health advocate? Because some people don't know what that looks like for them. It's important.
Oh gosh, I just I think for me is just being able to speak to crowds, being able to speak to as many people as I can speak to, and tell them, share my story, and in the same sense tell them, if you feel like you're alone, you're not. I'm here for you. That would be my ultimate goal. It kind of flip flop when I started the business, because the main part of the business was the clothing line, was the main part of the business. But now I've seen and been going through classes and been learning about the disabilities
Mhm.
and those kind of things. I'm more so want to speak to people,
Yes.
get my story out there, and help them to know that it's okay, the way you feel. They need to be validated.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times our feelings aren't validated.
Right.
It's like you shouldn't. I've heard you should be happy in the morning when you wake up. You've got a beautiful family. And it's not that I'm not happy about
Right.
that. It's just that the depression weighs me down
Mm-hmm.
every day of my life.
Yeah.
So it's a job to try to work up to find the positive
Yeah.
in everyday life for me.
Absolutely.
So my main goal is just to go out there and speak to as many people as I can speak to.
Absolutely. Depression is probably one of the most leading, depression and suicide are two of the most leading mental health illnesses, and suicide really is an action, but there's the depression usually is the lead up to
Right.
the action. And depression is very synonymous with apple pie. Like everybody's living with it,
Exactly.
and some people don't even know. They're just sad, can't get out of bed,
Exactly.
and like you said, it is absolutely a chore,
It is.
or to try to make yourself happy at a moment where you don't feel like it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I seen a story. I don't know if you, Pete Davidson. He suffers from depression. He's in and out of mental hospitals himself, and he said every day it's a job. Every day I get up and I have to work at being happy.
Yeah.
And that's for anybody that's suffering with depression.
Absolutely, and I know he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is depression on steroids, right? Because you have all these other different subsets to it.
Right.
I often look at people who have come out and said, especially just in the celebrity world, that they're navigating something, and then look at their behavior and actions. And I'm just going to jump over to R. Kelly, because I was looking at something that the Brad had on Dish Nation. That R. Kelly stated that he lives with bipolar disorder. And a lot of people don't realize that untreated bipolar disorder makes you very hypersexual. It does a lot. I mean, you live in delusion. You have these thoughts of grandeur, and so many different elements. Not forgiving what he's done in correlation, but it certainly, to me, should have been taken in account. Because if you're not on medication, that man doesn't live in reality probably 99% of the time, and don't know if he's messing with a kid versus a woman, because his mind doesn't allow him to navigate that.
Exactly.
And I remember watching parts of his trial, and I just thought his lawyers are really disenfranchising him, because his mental illness should be at the forefront of this trial.
Exactly.
And it wasn't.
Yeah.
So I just think about that when I see some of these folks who are like they're navigating this, that, and the other.
Right.
We have to learn to also understand this stuff.
Exactly.
Then we become less condemnatory about it.
Right. We don't have to like their actions.
Yes.
But we need to learn as to why they're doing what they're doing. There's always a reason behind doing bad or doing something that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
There's always a reason behind
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can still hold them accountable.
Exactly.
And still have grace for him at the same time.
Exactly.
And I always thought he was one of the people that really got the short side of it. Just knowing and having had lived with someone with bipolar disorder that knows that it is a whirlwind of a basket of hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I am so very proud of not only you taking a personal stand to want to support individuals, because let me tell you, folks who out there in YouTube and Power 88 land, those who take on a stance to be a mental health advocate, it is not just you talking to people and sharing your story. You're taking in everyone's emotions. You're taking in their feelings, their stories, their concepts, their ideas. And people don't come to you smiling with mental health. They're on the tip of the bridge. They're at the ball of emotions. And when you truly care, you take all of that in and digest all of that. And it is difficult. But when you love the process of mental health, when you train on it and you love people enough to care and share, you understand what are you planning on doing, or what are you doing now to take care of yourself. Because being an empath, and that's really what you end up really being, you take all of that in.
Oh yeah.
How do you release it? Because if you don't release it right after you take it, you're taking in somebody else's stuff rent free.
Yeah. And that's what I had to really think about before I started this journey, because when you're living with the disease yourself, and you're taking on everybody else's disease, it could be, it can backfire. I still go through therapy. I do counseling. I enroll myself in groups, grief groups, peer-to-peer groups with NAMI. I go on their groups. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I do walks. They do walks once a year for the suicide prevention, and so I just stay involved in as many groups as I can stay involved in, because to me it helps me being around people that are familiar with what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And then my grandkids,
Yeah.
they keep me busy.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Well, that makes a difference.
Yes,
It does. Throw in there some spa days that are just you.
Yes.
Where you're just focusing on you. I used to go to Calistoga every month, and then life kept happening,
Yeah.
and then I kept forgetting to go.
Right.
But what you find out is that you make things a super priority.
Right.
Not that they don't have to be a priority, but you got to find something to release that.
Right.
Definitely.
I do a lot with my daughter. She's huge on walks. She's huge on spa days, spa nights, facials, getting our feet done.
Yeah.
So I do. She's my advocate.
There you go.
That's gonna tear me up.
Oh.
But all my kids are super supportive. But my daughter is like my BFF.
Yeah.
We just do all kinds of stuff together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. It
does.
really does.
It does.
And having a very good support system, definitely. So just everyone out there, if you are navigating or you know anyone that is navigating mental illness, one thing that I learned, I'm going to share a couple of tips with you, and then I'm going to ask Valerie to share a couple of tips with you guys as we get ready to close. One thing that we've learned through NAMI is no need to solve the problem, right?
Right.
We have a strong inclination as human beings to be problem solvers. I am a natural fixer. That's just what I do. I start dissecting that problem down. But here's the thing. You are never going to know the full veracity of what's going on. And sometimes people just need a listening ear. They just need you there to hear and receive it, and don't need you attempting to fix it.
Right.
The second thing, if you have a friend that is in despair, can't get out of bed, is checking out on life, is saying things about the world would be better if I'm not here, or anything of that nature, that is unadmittedly your call to action. You don't need to sit down with them and hash over anything. You can ask them questions, about how they're feeling, if there's anything you can help them. But a lot of times when people are in despair, they don't know what they need. And that's when, as a friend or family member, you need to check in and make sure you're getting them help. And that's where that suicide prevention 988 number, or even if you have to call 911, there's a little stigma about, do we call, the police when you need help? Well, I know here in Solano County, there's a lot of different resources in play so that you have mental health clinicians or supporters that show up with the police to be able to assess it, so that we have less causation and we don't have that, because the police are not here to be able to diagnose anybody's mental health.
No.
They don't know how to do it, and their job is hard enough. They should not be doing it in the first place. They have to navigate their safety and get home.
Right.
So what we need to do is make sure we have institution in play to be able to do that. So definitely make sure if you're a caregiver, you're taking care of yourself. Any recommendations you have for those out there? Any tips for them and their family?
I would say just make sure that whoever you talk to is validating the way you feel, and not fighting against it. You want to make sure that somebody is listening to you and not talking at you. It's very important, and it might not be the first person you go to. It might not be the second person. Try that third person, or get yourself into therapy. Therapy is huge for me. Without therapy every day, I probably would be in that case, but I shouldn't say that. But
Okay.
I would be lost without therapy,
Yeah.
because it helps me honestly on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But just basically finding somebody that's going to validate your feelings, and reassure you that they're there to help you and not fight against you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was wonderful. And learning the trigger words. It's important to learn trigger words.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. Listen, I was triggering before I learned how to untrigger. So, but thank you again, Valerie, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Give us your website, how people can go and check out your clothing line and check out your podcast.
It's www.shoptrueyou.com, and you can actually, there's a link to my podcast on there. It's on Spotify.
Wonderful.
So you can look me up, True You Co.
All right, we will be checking that out. Remember to keep, keep close tabs on your family. Take care of yourself, everyone. Mental health and mental illness is real, and we can only combat and break the stigma if we are being honest and true with it. My name is Tamuri Richardson. This is TeeTalk, a Global Vibe. Next week, I will be in San Francisco, actually a part of a mental health conference supporting parent advocacy with NAMI San Francisco. So if you're interested in attending, go to namisf.org. Happy Saturday, everyone. Get out there. It's a little cloudy and gloomy out here. Enjoy your family and enjoy your day. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.